はい、こんにちは。また引き続き、
はい、
モロニーさんに来ていただいてますけど、今回のテーマは
この間の武井戦についてお伺いしたいんですけども、その前に、ちょっと他の動画で情報を仕入れたんですけども、オーストラリアにサウスポーが全然いなくて、なかなか大変だったって話を伺ったんですけども、それは事実なんですかね？
Yeah, well, there's not many lighter, say bantamweights, featherweights at all, but there's, maybe 5 or 10 good lighter guys in the country, which is not many at all, and yeah, very, very few southpaws. And I fought a few southpaws as an amateur, but I only fought one southpaw as a professional. And that wasn't so much by choice. We would fight guys on the way up, and just so happened to be that not many of them were southpaw. And then I think I got to about maybe 10, 12 fights in, and my coach and manager said we should probably fight a southpaw opponent because you haven't fought one yet. We need to build that experience. And then we opted to choose a southpaw opponent, and that was only the one, and I beat him. And then straight after that fight, I moved into the World Boxing Super Series, and I fought Rodriguez, and then the next few opponents just automatically fell into play. After the Super Series, we went on to Top Rank, and Top Rank sort of selected and chose my opponents, and I never got the opportunity to fight another southpaw up until Takei, and obviously that was 10 years and only one southpaw. So, and in between the fights, it's not like I was sparring with them in the gym. There was no southpaws around. So unfortunately, it was a long time between me fighting and working with and sparring with southpaws. And obviously I think that showed in the fight.
それはかなりありますね。っていうか、そんな中、ロマチェンコとスパーリングしたってことだじゃん。
Opportunities to fight left-handed southpaws, then you get to fight to spar with Lomachenko.
The best southpaw in the world. Yeah, it was very difficult, very difficult. But to be honest, Lomachenko wasn't such a difficult southpaw. He didn't put his front foot so wide like you see Takei and Nakatani. They really spread their front foot right on the outside, so it's very difficult to get the foot position. Lomachenko is a bit more square, and he sits in front of you a bit more, and it wasn't so difficult. Even though he's a southpaw, he wasn't very like an awkward, difficult southpaw to handle. I felt his angles and footwork are incredible, but actually standing in front of him wasn't that difficult. Whereas someone like Takei is very, very wide, very different stance, very hard for you to get your feet in the right position.
前足をここに置いてるわけですもん。ね、これが邪魔じゃないですか。邪魔っていうか、自分が思うように動けなくなっちゃうから、確かにそれだと、じゃあ当然アンドリューも永谷潤斗と戦う前とかもサウスポーのパートナーがそんなにいなかったってことですもんね。
Yeah, very similar. I think he'd fought 1 or 2 professional southpaws as well, and same circumstance. We both brought in very good sparring because we know, okay, we're fighting a southpaw here. We need to make sure we bring in good sparring. And I brought in 3 very good sparring partners. That's when Seiya Satsumi came over to Australia to help me, along with June. I can't remember, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, and Matcha. So I brought 3 Japanese fighters to Australia to help me and had great sparring. And same with Andrew before, Nakatani. Brought in some very good sparring, but you're trying to cram into 12 weeks what we needed to cram in over 12 years, and it's very hard to prepare. And look, we both have built that experience now, and from going through that training camp and going through that fight, now when I spar or fight a southpaw, I don't think I'll have so much difficulty. But that's I think why I struggled so much in the early stages of the fight is that I was just trying so hard to read him and trying to get my foot in the right position and having difficult time getting myself in the right positions that it became a real, I was thinking too much and I let him build momentum and gain control, and then it was hard for me to take over and impose my will. So yeah, it's a shame that we didn't get the southpaw experience on the way up, but it's something we're obviously mindful of now, and moving forward we'll make sure that we, even if we're not fighting a southpaw, we'll continue to spar them as regular as we can to make sure that we become stronger at fighting southpaws.
まあ日本の場合は結構サウスポーも当然少ないのは少ないけれども、少ないから本当は右利きの選手とかをサウスポーに変えてサウスポーが増えていってます。
Yeah, and now we see that 3 of the 4 champions here at bantamweight are southpaws. So there's quite a lot of potential opponents for me that I hope to fight. So it's something that I will continue to get better at and improve on because I want to fight them.
那須川天心って知ってます？
I've seen him, yes.
もう彼が、まあ、このバンタム級4人ねチャンピオンいますけど、一番のタレントは那須川天心。
Okay, yeah. I know he's obviously very popular because he has a big fan base and from K1. Yeah, and I've watched a few of his fights. I know his last opponent, Jonathan Rodriguez, because he was my sparring partner for 2 of my fights in America. And yeah, I've seen Tenshin, and I will continue to watch him, and potentially that is an opponent for me in the future.
でもそう考えたら井上拓磨以外みんなサウスポー。堤誠也はスイッチ。オーソドックス&サウスポーか。そうか。それは大変ですね。
It's a very complicated situation.
でもじゃあこの間の、武井戦の前にサウスポーに対してはもうある程度なんていうんですか、自分の中で手応えあったんですか？サウスポー対策。これでいけるかもっていう風な状態で試合に挑んだのか、やっぱサウスポーやりにくいなっていう状態で試合に挑んだのか。
A little bit of both. So when I spar, I really try and learn. I'm not like a real heavy sparrer that tries to win every single round. I use sparring to learn and to practice things, and particularly for this, because I hadn't fought a southpaw in so long, I was really thinking and trying to work out what was working for me and what wasn't, and yeah, thinking a lot during the sparring and really trying to learn and become a bit more comfortable. But I hoped that when I went into the fight that it would just flow and become more natural, and I would just fight my fight and fight how I normally would. But that's where it went wrong. I think I started the fight, wanted to have a bit of a look at him, wanted to try and work him out, and then I started to think and started trying to get myself into positions and became a real thinking fight rather than me just forgetting about the learnings in training and fight the fight. And I got stuck sort of watching, thinking, trying to really, it was like, too much of a chess match in a way, whereas I should have just thrown that to the side and fought my fight. And as we saw in the later rounds, when I knew that I needed to do something special to win, that I was losing, that I needed to pick it up, and I stopped thinking so much, I started to have more and more and more success. And if I had fought more like that, fought my fight more, I think it would have been a different story. But I think me overthinking in training led to overthinking in the fight, and that was my downfall.
僕はね、モロニー陣営の真後ろで見てたんですよ、試合を。
そうですか。
試合を見てて、もうとにかくセコンドがも もうなんていうんですか、セコンドももうとにかくなんで行かないんだっていう、多分でもすごい迷ってるっていうかね、リングの上でそういう感じは見受けられたんです。もっと行けもっと行けもっと行けっていう感じでセコンドも結構リアクションしてたんで、まあ彼にどう伝えてるかは分かんないんですけど、後ろから見ててですよ、そのセコンドの様子。
Yeah, well, they were frustrated and I was frustrated, and watching back now, it's such a frustrating fight for me to watch because I know that I'm so much better than that, and it was a bad performance by me. But it's hard sometimes to break that rhythm during a fight, and credit to Takei, he was controlling the fight how he wanted it to go, and being tricky and unorthodox and hard to read, and making it hard for me to gain control. And yeah, they were obviously frustrated because they could see that I was stuck in that ditch of thinking and not pulling the trigger as much as I normally would. But it was hard for me to get out of, and then later in the fight, when I got out of it, it was too late. And yeah, it's very frustrating that you work so hard to become a world champion, and then you perform badly and lose your title, and it's such a big setback. So it's it hurts, but all I can do is learn from that and make sure it doesn't happen again.
練習でやってることを要するにリング上に持ち込む、練習こうやってやってきたからって持ち込むのがなんていうんですか、それによって逆にうまくいかなくなるパターンっていうのもあるってことだよね。これは僕もちょっとボクサーやってたんで昔そういう経験がありますんで、もうそういうちょっと固執しちゃう、そういう練習でやってたことになるほどなと。
日本だと結構武井選手はこのハードパンチとこの独特な嗅覚というか勘みたいなのでなかなか対戦相手が入っていけないのかなと思ったんですけど、モロニー選手からしたら技術的な問題で入れなかったって感じだったんですか？
No, he was very tricky, very hard to read and very hard to find the right positions, and he throws punches from unorthodox angles and from long range when he jumps in quite wide with some of his shots. Yeah, he's quite unorthodox and tricky, which that, as I said, that's credit to him. What he does works for him, and it was me overthinking, but it was also him being quite unpredictable, which made it difficult for me. So it's the combination. Me not doing so good and him being quite good and very tricky.
もうじゃあ決まるぞと、武井と決まるぞって映像を見た時はどういう印象だったんですか？
Well, for me, when I watch that style, I'm like, oh, that's a nightmare of a style. It's so tricky. He's a big, awkward southpaw, fairly tall, long. When I'm not very experienced with fighting southpaws, so straight away I think, that's a ugly style. That's a difficult style. Whereas if I had the experience against southpaws, that wouldn't be such an issue. But he was just so different to everyone I'd fought previously that I knew straight away, he's not very experienced, but he's got a lot of experience as a kickboxer, so he still had the fight experience. But I knew that it was just a difficult style for me because it was so different to what I was used to. And perhaps that played in my head a little bit, it's such a difficult style, rather than just being like, okay, this guy's not ready for me, I'm too good, I'm too experienced, I'm the world champion. It was just, that's such an ugly, messy, unorthodox style. Yeah. Another factor, which the only way I knew of Takai, or the main reason I knew of Takai, is because he'd previously fought and beaten a stable mate of mine, Bruno Torimo. He used to train with me, and I helped him prepare for Takai. And when Bruno fought him, he really tried to pressure him. and Takai just ran around the ring on the back foot the whole fight, moving, didn't want to engage. And the more Bruno tried to pressure him, he kept walking into these big shots and got buzzed, and eventually he got stopped because of a cut. But the more pressure he tried to put on, he just kept walking into his punches. So I'd watched that fight and I thought, I don't want to pressure him too much because it will make him run and it will make him start to try and bring me onto his shots. And the more he ran, the more difficult it became, and then it was almost like Bruno's pressure was falling into his hands. It was like he wanted him to be like that aggressor. So that made me think maybe I won't pressure him so much because I don't want him to run and make it hard. So I didn't put that much pressure on him. But then in hindsight, when I did put pressure on him, it was so effective for me. And it's because probably I'm a much different fighter than my stablemate Bruno, and I'm probably better at putting the pressure on and cutting off the ring better. So if I didn't watch that fight, I would have fought a different fight and I would have pressured him more. I wish I'd never watched that fight. Again, something you do afterwards and you think it helps because you watch and you do your homework, but it was negative because it stopped me from putting the pressure on, and I should have put more pressure on.
これはね、相当深いよ、今日の話は。まあだからまあメンタルじゃん。まあそこも含めてリングに上がる時のですよね。過大評価しすぎてもダメだし、でも自分が自信を持ちすぎてもダメだし。いや難しいですよね。これ本当に。武井と比嘉の試合は見ました？
Yeah, very good fight.
Very good fight.
Yeah, very good.
日本で試合したいですよね。
So you want to fight in Japan, right?
Absolutely. Yes,
間
please.
間違いなくお願いします。
じゃあミスター本田とミスター大橋見てますんで。
Please.